1,000.
Well, economists are warning that funding for various government-controlled sectors such as health and education may be affected due to Eskom's dire financial situation. This as Finance Minister Tito Mboweni prepares to deliver his budget speech in the National Assembly. Today, let's bring in SABC Anchor Nompu Siziba, who's live for us in Cape Town for the all-important budget. Hey, Nompu, thank you very much indeed once again for joining us. I'm not sure if you've seen this tweet from Mr. Mboweni. It's basically a cartoon of him carrying what seems like a budget booklet on a red pillow, but behind him he's carting a huge file saying Eskom. That's telling, isn't it?
It is very telling. I mean, Eskom is the elephant in the room. I mean, that's going to be the massive focus for everybody, really. One of the things that Tabilioka was saying earlier, an independent economist that I was speaking to, was that the budget is a process. And as soon as he's finished delivering this budget for this year, immediately work begins to work on the next budget. And that process can take up to 14 months even. So in actual fact, this Eskom burden, which has sort of been bubbling away, is now become an emergency and really hasn't been factored into the process. And now suddenly government has to scurry around and find funds to assist Eskom. So yes, I think Eskom is bigger right now than all the other problems. But at the end of the day, South Africa still needs to ensure that its services and addresses its economic imperatives, health and education, security, and all the other list of issues that are important for South Africa. Of course, the scourge of unemployment, inequality and poverty, that needs to be addressed. You can't just skip that because of Eskom. So it's going to be a real fine balancing act for the minister. And of course, you mentioned that he needs to try and raise revenue, but we're in an economic situation where there's lackluster growth. In fact, there's very tepid growth going on in the economy, and because of that, it's difficult for him to be able to raise taxes. Last year, there was a controversial raising of the VAT, and it's unlikely, especially because we're in an election year, that they'll touch that and perhaps any other taxes that affect people directly. But to give us his perspective on what we can expect, I'm joined by Reggie de Swart. He's a tax specialist, at EY. Thanks very much for joining us, Reggie. So many of your ilk are saying that it's very unlikely that Tito Mboweni will touch personal income tax, corporate tax, and of course VAT, which was raised last year. What are your expectations, and where can he try and raise taxes?
I agree. I think it's unlikely that these three taxes will see any significant increases. And I think we need to take into account that these are the three main sources of revenue for the government. So if tax increases is what's going to happen, it's going to come from one of these. I think it's unlikely that we'll see a VAT rate increase. We've seen it last year. And when that happened, we all said, well, that probably means that that's the last tax that we can increase to limit the budget deficit. And we've had that now. It's unlikely to increase it again this year, specifically since it's election year. It's unlikely that we'll see an increase in the corporate tax rates either. Our president is serious about attracting foreign investment, and with that in mind, you cannot increase the corporate tax rate. I don't expect to see significant increases in the personal income tax rate. Maybe what they will introduce is a type of a super rich tax. Maybe that's on the table. We'll need to see. But our personal income tax is already on 45%, and it's been there for the last 2 years. So we're already on a very high personal income tax rate. What I do expect to see is just some bracket adjustments here, and that's also the trend that we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years. Instead of increasing the brackets by inflation, they slow that down, and effectively, since this is a big machine that generates revenue for treasury, for government, that could end up with a significant amount of revenue just because of the bracket adjustments that are slowed down.
And then what about the usual suspects, the sin taxes? Do we expect rates to go up on those?
So again, on those, I think it's become the norm that we expect those to increase. So yes, the sin taxes, it seems that it's socially acceptable that we increase those taxes on alcohol and tobacco products. So I expect to see some increases there. Again, those are not the big sources of revenue for the government. So although we'll see increases there, it's not going to make a significant impact on the amounts that we need.
And of course, the government did talk about carbon tax in the midterm budget policy statement. It's something that's been discussed for several years and sort of kicked down the road for a long time, but they said come June that's going to kick in. But of course we've got lackluster economic growth, industry suffering, and of course they can cite unreliability in terms of Eskom electricity supply and so on. Do you think that's going to take effect in June?
And I think the reason why it's been postponed for a couple of years now is because of the implementation of the tax. It's not an easy tax to implement. The date that we have is the 1st of June. So far it's been confirmed in the midterm budget speech. So at the moment we expect to see it come live on the 1st of June. Again, I don't see this as an immediate enormous source of revenue for government. It will take a couple of months, if not years, for that revenue to come through. The details about how this will be implemented will now be published between now and the 1st of June. So we'll see a little bit more coming out exactly what the impact of that is going to be.
And very quickly, Reggie, isn't there a danger that if the government does try and touch the wealthy, we've already heard that there are many who have means who've already begun to start tax avoidance processes, and avoiding tax is not necessarily illegal while evading is. Isn't there a danger that if government does levy more, then it might not have the desired effect?
There's always that danger, but I think it's not only on the wealthy. I think it's across the population. We're getting to a point where taxes have been increased over a period of time, and that further increases may just lead to tax avoidance and tax evasion. I don't think it's just in the wealthy, but surely there as well. But I think we also need to keep in mind that although we don't have a tax that's called wealth tax, we already have wealth taxes in South Africa. Our capital gains tax, transfer duty, income tax to a large extent is already a tax on the wealthy. So they're already used to it, and I do expect to see in today's budget that there will be some announcements that will impact the typical wealth taxes that we have.
All right, Reggie, thank you very much for your time. That was Reggie de Schwartz. He's from EY and he's a tax specialist. It doesn't look as though Finance Minister Tito Mboweni has many tools available in his box in terms of levying higher tax increases. It's going to be a tough one, and there's so many imperatives that need to be funded. Blaine, back to you.
Nompu Siziba, live for us in Cape Town. Thank you.
Now, a member of the legal team of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, Senior Counsel Advocate Vincent Malenka, is scheduled to put Eskom-related documents on record when public hearings continue in Parktown in Johannesburg this morning. The proceedings have started there. Let's go there live.